Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. You're watching the VSO Gun Channel. And today we're going to be retreading some ground that I covered earlier in the week. I did a live stream this past Sunday. That's usually when we do our live streams, about midday-ish, on the Sig Sauer M18 Air Force scandal. We have some new information on that, and as always, we try to be impartial in everything we do. If it looks like it's bad for somebody, that doesn't mean that we're going to shy away from it. If it's good for somebody, then we don't shy away from that either. So to be objective, we need to make sure that we cover all of that. And like I said, I covered this on Sunday, but many of you have messaged me about, hey dude, did you see this? And many people, even in my personal life, are like, dude, did you hear about this thing with the SIG? And I'm like, I covered this, but this is really not your guys' fault for missing this. This is a YouTube problem. They keep the live stream VODs in a separate panel, and it just doesn't show up on normal people's feeds. Like when I go to see one of my friends' live stream VODs, I have to like go there and you have to look for this thing. And the numbers reflect that you guys just plain out didn't see it. So what I'm going to do today is kind of like rehash that in a more concise fashion. And basically, if you've been living under a rock, then you have missed that there was an Air Force airman that was killed allegedly from an M18 discharge. The story, initial story, was weapon was slammed down on a countertop or a security checkpoint top, or, you know, I forget which piece of information went where, but basically gun in holster, laid it on a countertop or put it on a countertop or smashed it on a countertop, irrelevant. Gun discharges, hits a dude in the chest, and kills him, basically. That was the original story. And then, if you remember, about a month later, it was let go that this person has been arrested and is being investigated and charged with making false statements and involuntary manslaughter. And there's a lot of conjecture of what that actually means. There were some people that said, oh, well, that completely vindicates SIG. And there are other people that said, well, it doesn't vindicate SIG. What I said was involuntary manslaughter. What that means is that this person was likely behaving in a negligent fashion with that firearm, but they didn't like walk into the place, draw their gun out of their holster, say, F you for boinking my old lady or something like that, and cap the dude, right? That's not what happened. There's probably some other kind of negligent behavior that ultimately precipitated in somebody losing their life. But it wasn't something that rose to the level of murder, any kind of premeditation or any of that sort of stuff. Well, the story has since evolved, and we receive word now that the person of interest in that investigation
is no more. It has ceased to be.
Today's video is brought to you by First Form. This is a pro-freedom supplement and nutrition company that has made a serious effort to go through all of their products and strip out a whole bunch of dumb ingredients that don't need to be there. I typically gravitate towards their protein sources. The big ones that I use are their protein bars and their meat sticks. These are things that you can smash into a bag and eat on the go when you need to replenish your protein. I highly suggest that you check that out, as well as their caffeine sources, which is my drug of choice, I have to admit. And I have a link and a QR code that I'll throw up on screen for those of you who go over there and check out their wares. It tells them that I sent you, and it helps out the channel. So thank you very much to First Form for making today's video possible. Marcus Tyrone White Allen was found to be deceased, and that's the individual who was under investigation for this accident. We don't have a whole lot of details about the nature of his demise, but as an outsider looking in, I would say this. The facts are that the maximum penalty for involuntary manslaughter is 20 years in prison. Given that this is UCMJ, we're talking about a trip to Leavenworth. I don't know about you, but 20 years in Leavenworth does sound like a very fun ride. I'll just leave that as it is. Anyway, because the person of interest in this crime is no more, the Air Force has decided to release some details pertaining to the case. And it has been found that White Allen pointed a gun at Braden Lovin's chest in a joking manner, and the rest is history. Now, does that vindicate Sig? I'm willing to give them considerably more space in this case than the other story, which is slamming the pistol on the deck. We know that there are verifiable incidences of something at some point in time wrong with the M18/P320 pistol. There was a voluntary upgrade, right? We know that there was at some point in time some kind of problem. There is a plethora of other things that range in the category of validity all across the internet. You can be the judge of that. If you're talking about a weapon being slammed on the deck and it going off, that is substantively different than the weapon is in somebody's hand. That is compounded if you tell me that that weapon is in somebody's hand and that person is a member of the armed forces or a member of the law enforcement community. And I'm not trying to be that dude that's just sitting here making fun of cops and military members, but the truth of the matter is, folks that work with weapons on a regular basis have a tendency to gain a certain level of complacency with those weapons. It can be training related, it can be cultural, it can be a whole bunch of things, but generally speaking, you see a lot of accidents when it comes to law enforcement, military personnel that are directly related to just not following the rules, not following the SOPs, not following the principles of safe weapons handling. Okay? And given that this weapon was in somebody's hand and that person was a member of the armed forces, already makes me immediately say, Sig's not culpable for this one whatsoever. Even if it was one of those fluke situations, let's say that there was a mechanical failure with that weapon, and the weapon was in somebody's hand, pointed in an unsafe direction, you have to rewind the tape and basically say, there's some bad facts that lead up to this. And then you have to make the jump to, okay, the weapon went off by itself after it was already pointed at somebody else's chest in the hands of somebody who may not have the greatest training in the world or weapons handling skills. There's a fly in here. It's that time of year. Didn't get him. Now, I'll tell you what I see from the outside looking in, okay? I see a couple youths that were behaving in a particular type of way that it was unbecoming. We'll call it roughhousing, shall we? And some stupid stuff happened. Remember the rules of stupid. Never go stupid places with stupid people at stupid times of the day to do stupid things. There are lots of boxes that were just checked in that whole list, right? A man is dead, and another one, it appears as though couldn't handle the consequences of his actions and took a particular alternative off-ramp. From there is some additional fallout because it's like, okay, well, how did this story all get started? Well, it turns out there were two other individuals involved, and it appears as though those folks were making false statements in support of this initial story, and it looks like the individual that was being investigated for this crime that
It's expired and gone to meet its maker. This is a late parent.
Orchestrated those stories. They have been administratively disciplined, and I asked my brother what this means as far as like the differing the punishments that are involved, because there was one was like $500 and there was another one was like $1,500, and this one got 10 days confinement and this one got 30 days confinement, and then different punishments for the same crime and all that sort. I asked my brother about it because he was in the Navy, and he basically kind of run me down a whole bunch of different scenarios. I don't think that any of them are really relevant. These guys, basically, it seems as though we're compelled to make these false statements, Article 107s, and then who knows what their defense for that was, but they have been demoted, fined, imprisoned, et cetera, right? So they've been dealt with. But it looks like that is the initial source of this whole story. Somebody acted dumbly. Somebody died. They said, this is what happened. They had folks corroborate their story illicitly. And that brings us up to today. Those are the facts of the case. Whether or not this speaks to any kind of problem with the SIG, I would say that this story is ultimately inconclusive / leaning in SIG's favor. That's my perspective. I would like to know what you guys think in the comments section down below.